All right. Here we go. Welcome to this edition of the Baseball Forward podcast, a movement committed to passing the beautiful game of baseball on to the next generation of ball players and coaches. I'm your host, Ross Hawley, and I want to thank you for spending some time with us wherever you might be watching or listening from. If this is your first time with us, welcome. For exclusive video clips and outtakes of this and all the other episodes of the Baseball Forward podcast, go give us a follow on social media at BaseballFWD or Ross Hawley 39. And for more information on joining the Baseball Forward movement, visit us on the World Wide Web at baseballforward.com. The Baseball Forward podcast is brought to you by Southpaw Hat Company. Don't let the name fool you. Southpaw hats are designed for everyone, not just you funky lefties out there. Check out their latest and greatest at southpawhatco.com and enter ball forward, BALLFWD, at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Now, on to today's episode and guest. He's the bench coach for the Texas Rangers AAA affiliate in Round Rock, Texas, the Round Rock Express, and he's the author of the recently published The Hitter's Handbook. He's Mr. Chase Lambin. Here's episode 28 of the Baseball Forward podcast. Mr. Chase Lambin, I apologize for that long intro, my friend. Welcome to the Baseball Forward podcast. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. We were talking offline here a little bit before, and I'm pumped. I know you're friends with Cole Strayhorn, and Cole Strayhorn is indeed a beauty. And I'm glad that we were able to connect through Cole. Man, I'm really excited to talk to you today. One, just to kind of pick your brain and get as much knowledge as we can for the audience out there in regards to just baseball in general, but obviously hitting. You just recently published The Hitter's Handbook. So I want to lead with this. How does that feel, publishing your own book? What does that feel like?
It feels weird to hear you say that because I'm just a ball player, and to hear published author book, and along with my name doesn't sound right, but I guess I have to get used to it.
Hey, it's your fault for accumulating all that knowledge and then feeling like you have to put that stuff out there. I mean, you can't go to your grave with that stuff in your mind, right?
That's a good point.
Yes,
point.
Sir.
That's kind of why I wrote it. Was I just wanted to get some stuff out of my brain, and that's what kind of happened.
Well, we will definitely get into that here mid-show-ish. I read through it, man, and as a dad to ball players that are learning the craft of hitting, oh, guys, I cannot express this enough. You have to go out and get your copy of the Hitter's Handbook, because here's what I'll say about it. Before we kind of get into this, very easy to digest, very simple for even guys like me to understand, which hitting is like, it's like rocket science, it seems like, but it was very easy to understand and just so many good things to think about. But I want to start with, this podcast, this episode of the Baseball Forward podcast, Chase, with talking about you a little bit, because you have quite a storied background, and you've been in the game of baseball for a long, long time. I do know this. You and I are the same age. I saw you're a 1979 kid. Is that right?
That's right.
Hey, yeah. I'm born in 1979 too, my friend. So
it's a great year.
We're getting up there. Chase Lambin, I want to hear a little bit about you, man. I want to know kind of what you do. I know from what I understand, you're with AAA for the Rangers. Obviously, that's a stinking high level. You're the bench coach for the Round Rock Express. At least you were this past season. So tell us a little bit about you and your background. Let's start with this. Tell us about you and what you do now, and what your current role is.
Yeah, I've kind of climbed my way through the Rangers system. This is my 10th year with the organization, and I started at the bottom in rookie ball, and I've pretty much worked at every level in the system in different facets: hitting coach, bench coach. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've been in Round Rock as the hitting coach and now bench coach. So it's been a dream to be able to put Texas across my chest and to be in my home state and to, chase championships and actually I live in Georgetown right down the street from Round Rock. So it's been a blessing so far. But, in terms of bench coach, and you're kind of filling in all the gaps. You're the assistant hitting coach, the assistant pitching coach, the associate manager, you're coaching third base, you're running the infield positioning, outfield early work, infield early work, catchers early work. there's just a lot of things that have to be done on a day-to-day basis in AAA. And, I'm kind of the one that, oversees a little bit of all of it, a jack of all trade, king of none. It's just, I'm trying to take things off people's plate as much as I can on a daily basis.
I love it. And I know this, knowing what I know of the game of baseball, bench coach at the AAA level, man, that's royalty. So I want to know this is the goal for Chase Lambin to be a major league manager, a major league coach?
I'd say yes. I'm not a title chaser, and I've never been in coaching to get to certain levels and to have certain, financial income or status. Like, I genuinely just like to help players be their best selves. So that probably sounds like a bit of a punt on that question, but of course I would love to coach in the major leagues, and I feel like I could, and I feel like I'm ready to, but at the same time, like, I really love where I am. I'm super blessed to be at this level close to home. And I take what comes. And as a former minor league player, you understand that you're pretty much putting your nose to the ground on a day-to-day basis and not really looking too far ahead, because that can get you in trouble. And from my playing days, I've learned to you can't really control the winds of this game, that you just got to go and do your best each day and see where it takes you.
That's right. That's a fact. Talking with Chase Lambin today, AAA bench coach for the Texas Rangers. Man, a life of baseball. I mean, here we are now. We're going to talk here in a little bit about the Hitter's Handbook and all the wealth of knowledge, the knowledge that you've accumulated just in the game over the number of years that you put in your service. I'd be curious to go a little bit before all the professional stuff, and I want to know what made you fall in love with baseball. Was there a moment, like, what was your upbringing in the game of baseball?
Well, I had a big brother that was a bit of a lead blocker for me. He was my hero, 4 years older than me, good baseball player, played at Oklahoma State, played at University of Texas, just a good player that I thought hung the moon. So I just wanted to follow him around and do what he did. And my dad was an avid baseball person and coached all of our teams and coached a lot of organizations in the Houston, Texas area. So I just was around the game a lot and, fell in love with it, just whether it be playing wall ball or baseball cards or wiffle ball in the backyard. I just couldn't get enough of it. And I just became a bit of a student without really even knowing it, just the way I watched it. And I felt like I had a good instinct to emulate players that I would watch. I would move like them. I'd watch my brother. I think I was just a good observer and a good imitator. I think that, the best compliment is imitation. So I think you can learn a lot just by watching and emulating, especially the best players in the world. So I just grew up in it and fell in love with the process, fell in love with the grind. I liked the sport that I could separate myself with, just dogged effort and dogged determination and mental clarity. And, I started to outperform people that were physically more talented than me. And I kind of fell in love with that. And I like to prove people wrong. And I like to be an underdog and overachieve. And so I just kind of took it day by day. And next thing you know, I never imagined I'd play professional baseball, but now I've been in pro ball 23 years.
You know what's funny about that comment right there? Because I bet you were probably the same as me. But what I loved about playing the game of baseball is, like, there was always a hope to go on and go on and move on and move on. And that's why you played. Like, I remember when I was done playing, I walked away from the game. But I remember when I was done playing, I had some friends that asked me, hey, do you want to go play in a men's league? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't play baseball to go play in men's league. So I want to know this, like, as you were coming up, was that always in your mind? Were you like, man, I want to be a ball player. I want to be a big leaguer. Is that what the goal was for you?
The big carrot for me was the University of Texas. My parents went to school there. My brother played ball there. I had burnt orange wallpaper as a kid. So it was just Omaha was my top of the mountain. It was the Gustafson era, University of Texas, and here comes Garrido, and I'm going to games at UT. And so that was kind of my carrot that I was just like, if I could just get there. So, that was my, my prize at the end. But as you get into it and you start to play more and you have some more success and you go to other schools and realize there's more than just University of Texas, then it becomes just the next level. And it's just like, when I'm in JUCO, I just want to play D1. And when I'm at D1, I want to, play enough to maybe get drafted. You get drafted and you're like, how long can I make this, my profession? And, you're just trying to go level by level and you just don't look up at the whole mountain. You just look at the next ledge and you really just try to reach that. And I always just wanted to be, I just wanted to chase my best version of myself. And like, I just really wanted to play good baseball, and wherever that took me, I was genuinely okay. I felt like I was on borrowed time from like way back. I never felt
Wow.
like I was truly meant to be a professional baseball player. So I was just always so grateful to have a uniform on that I think that really helped me. I didn't go through the entitledness. I didn't go through I didn't ever think anything should be handed to me. I always felt like I had to do more, and my job wasn't secure. So I think that just drove me to like do more than the next guy and be different than the next guy. And if you do what everybody else does, you get what everybody else gets. And most people just don't reach their potential. And I just didn't want to be that guy. I just wanted to be, in my mind, success is being able to sleep at night, for the rest of your life, wherever level you get to. Maybe it's a junior varsity in high school, maybe it's varsity in hh school, college, pro, whatever it is. If you feel like you unturned every rock and you went after it as hard as you could, and you just put your nose to the ground and got after it, then you're good. Like, you can sleep the rest of your life. That's beautiful. That's success. And there's a lot of people that played in the big leagues or play in the big leagues now that are not going to be able to say that. There's guys that are selling themselves short even at high levels of baseball, and it's going to catch up to them. They're going to be 45 like us, and they're going to be like, they're going to have regrets. And I don't feel like that's success. So I feel like I'm as successful as any multi all-star major leaguer, because that's the way I kind of went about it.
I love hearing that. Talking with Chase Lambin on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Man, it sounds like you and I have a lot more in common than I realized. You said University of Texas. Hey, I grew up on the Air Force Academy. My father was an instructor at the academy. He went down to get his PhD at UT. I have a twin brother who also played. And second, third, and fourth grade, we grew up in Austin. And we would go to Dish Falk, and that's where I get goosebumps thinking about it. Going to Dish Falk, and you said Cliff Gustafson, Coach Gus, 1,000 Ways to Win. I remember I had that poster on my room, all the alumni, and I think Kurt Dressendorfer, Scott Bryant, Art
Calvin Murray.
Oh, Cal Murray. Oh my gosh, just the best. I remember going to those games and watching, and I remember just how beautiful the game was played. So I love hearing. I get that Texas was just it was that that benchmark, man. I'm curious if that the dynamic of having an older brother that played the game, how important that was to you in your development. Did you feel like you were trying to satisfy him? Were you trying to make him proud? Were you trying to emulate him? What was that like?
I think it was. I think he was the he was the rabbit out in front of the horses, or whatever, the dogs that you're chasing. Like, I was always in his shadow, literally and figuratively. I think, he was always considered the bigger one, the stronger one, the mentally tougher one. And I wasn't, I was kind of overlooked, like, I just like, why couldn't you be more like your brother? And I'm like, man, all right. So I think there was just a lot in me that was like to prove people wrong, that, I was never going to be what he was. And so I kind of lurked in the weeds and just waited for my time. And I was a little bit of a later developer. And I think I'd developed certain habits that allowed me to even surpass what he was able to do in the game. So I think it was a big thing for me. One, to see someone really work hard on a day-to-day basis, just to have the visual of someone working hard is so paramount, because you don't know what hard work is until you actually either see it or do it. So I was able to see it, and I was able to do it, and then became, my MO.
Sure. Talking with Chase Lambin here. And Chase, I know your career as a player, you were at Grayson, and then you were at Texas, and then you were at Louisiana Lafayette, Powers. I mean, junior college. I mean, Grayson. Did you play with Was it Tadlock at the time?
We had Tadlock and won back-to-back national championships.
Think about that. Tell me a little bit about the junior college grind.
I mean, of all the years I played baseball, I genuinely think those are the best 2 years of my life. I mean, the best 2 years of my baseball experience, just because the pureness of it, the relationships, the bad news bear, gritty style of baseball. Tadlock is a tremendous leader, and the players we had there, and to win 2 national championships, you can't make that up. So no. It was the best thing that ever happened to me in terms of my development. Like, I tell people that I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have those 2 years of JUCO to develop, the 60 games in the fall and the 60 games in the spring and another 50 in the summer. And I just got so many at bats and so many reps at an age where I had to go find out what my game was and who I was as a player. And that allowed me to do it.
That is amazing to hear, because, and I don't know, not so much anymore today, but because junior college is really, I think it's kind of hitting its stride, and people are starting to understand the value in playing junior college baseball. But what you just said really resonates with me. You went and found who you were. Man, it takes so many at bats and innings and reps to really kind of understand. So that's a good segue into the main point of us talking today, and that's the hitter's handbook. You say in your introduction to the hitter's handbook, years and years, almost 30 years in competitive baseball, about what you fiddled around with and how you had to kind of adjust and figure things out. The hitter's handbook just was published. I think it was last week. Is that right, Chase?
Sunday night.
Sunday night. So I want to read something to you as we get into it, because I truly want people to go get this, consume it, digest it, marinate on it, because it is really good information, Chase. And what I want to read this to you, and something that resonated with me in the introduction is, this is the Hitter's Handbook by Chase Lambin. Swinging and hitting aren't the same. The swing, whether good or bad, is usually a byproduct of the factors that come before the actual swing. And then you said, in my experience playing and working with elite level hitters for the last 23 years, the following components come before. Listen to that, folks. Before, and they outweigh the actual mechanics of the swing. That is, number one, mentality. Number two, timing. Number three, pitch selection. Then number four, the mechanics. And the vast majority of hitters spend 90% of their time working on number four, which is the mechanics. Chase, when I read that as a baseball guy, I was hooked. I'm like, I want to read all of it. I want to read it now, and I want to read it multiple times, because I think that's what's missing in a lot of cages across this country, where guys go work and they talk about just working on their swing and they're perfecting their swing. And you're saying, whoa. There's three things that come before the mechanics and the actual swing. I love that. I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah, I through a lot of trial and error as a hitter and getting out of thousands of times, you start to figure out what does and doesn't work, and you start to dig down rabbit holes, and you go every which way. You go around the world and end up back where you started, especially when it comes to mechanics. And and then when I got into coaching, I saw a lot of guys kind of go through that journey, and sometimes they wouldn't get back to where they started because they get released right here. They'd go on this mechanical journey where they got drafted because they raked in high school or they raked in college, and now they get into pro ball, and within 50 at bats, they're getting turned upside down. And it was so frustrating for me to watch, because that happened to me and it happens to everybody. But I was able to at least hang on long enough to get back to kind of where I started, to get back to my true identity. And it's just like, it's unfortunate to watch, and it's hard to watch. And you're just like, man, you don't buy a racehorse and then teach it how to run. I mean, you got these players, at least let them fail for a couple hundred at bats before you start tinkering with them. But there's so many coaches that just can't help themselves. They just want to help, and the intentions are good, but in the process, they're just changing these guys wholesale, thinking and trying to get them better. But it's like, at what cost, and is it truly their mechanics? Maybe they're just anxious or nervous to be in pro ball, or they don't really know. They haven't seen this level of pitching. Like, give them some time to adjust. So as a coach, I kind of just went against the grain and just wanted to just let people move the way that they felt they needed to move. And let's not put the cart in front of the horse. Let's just first get fastball timing on a high percentage pitch. Let's just be able to get on time with a good pitch. And then if we're not hitting it, then maybe we can look at your actual movement pattern. So I got into coaching as a hitting coach, and I just started to more focus on that. And I started to see my players, respond to me better and perform better. And, I started to kind of just build my philosophy on hitting. And I'm obviously not anti-mechanics. I think they're absolutely paramount. I mean, path and balance and direction are uber important, but a lot of those things get overlooked. And I just felt like there's a false bill of goods being sold to the entire baseball industry, that if you could just find this swing, you're going to hit. And it's like, man, I've done this for a living, and I've coached it for a living. And I promise you, it's not just your swing. There's a lot of things that happen before that. So, but it's not tangible. You can't film it. It's hard to talk. It's soft skills. It's mentality. How do you really teach mentality? It's timing. Timing's tough to teach. Pitch selection's like, okay, swing at good pitches, but what does that mean? So it's just, you got to dig a little bit, and it's a little harder to teach that way. It takes a little more time. You got to develop more relationships with guys and build trust. But in the long run, that's what's going to get you to be your best version.
I love it. I spoke with, I was up in Stillwater, Oklahoma on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'm talking with Coach Gary Ward, obviously legend, and we're talking about Robin Ventura, okay? And where he was talking about Walt Riniak back in the day. Walt Riniak knows past contact, right? And you instantly start thinking about like Wade Boggs and that type of swing. And Coach Ward says the same stuff that you're saying. I love it because I feel like I got a front row seat to the best instruction in the world, and I'm like, I want everybody to hear it because I want to go to. You said well intentioned with like the hitting instructors out there. They're well intentioned. They want to help, but it's not necessarily about the mechanics, and it's so important about the stuff that comes before the mechanics. Why do young coaches or coaches in general, in your opinion, because I think about the story that Coach Ward said about Walt Raniak forcing his style on Robin Ventura, and you're saying pump the brakes, gain the trust. You got to let them, that you got to know what's going on in their head, and all the things you said were hot buttons for me. But why do coaches impose their will, do you think, when it comes to mechanics?
It's ego, it's agenda. It's they're trying to put their stamp on a player sometimes, and they want to be the one that fixed them or got them to whatever level. And if you don't coach them hard and you don't change them, how can you take credit? And it sounds gross. And there's like, even the ones that don't have that intent, they just want to say something. But in my opinion, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. But to have the discipline and discernment to do that is very difficult. And you have to have a lack of ego. You have to have a self-confidence in yourself. You have to have a collaborative approach to hitting. Like, I don't have all the answers. Every swing's a snowflake. I don't know what I'm going to do with a player's swing until we kind of try some things out. Like, it's a blank canvas for me. I don't have a swing that I teach. I don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to go towards something together, and that's the way I approached coaching hitting. And I think players respect that, one, and two, they develop their own ownership over whatever they're doing. If they're told what to do, you think you're going to have self-confidence, you're going to have conviction in something that you're being told, and putting your head underwater and forced to do some certain movement that hasn't worked for you, but you've done this move and it has worked. Like, that's a tough sell, and it becomes a battle. And now you're coach player battle, and there's no one's hitting and no one's happy. Like, I'm good on that. Like, call me, like, you may watch me in a cage and not be impressed because I'm not coaching a lot, but I feel like that's by design. And I feel like I'd rather do that than say something that might make the kid or player go backwards.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Ownership, because that's huge. You're talking to young ball players out there that when you start talking about mechanics only, and I think this is where I think it's a bummer for kids. I was a very coachable kid, and I wanted to please my coach. And I think sometimes I missed ownership of my own ability and ownership of taking ownership of how my body was moving and what I was doing. So when I say ownership to you, when you're talking to the young guys out there that are listening to this, to the middle school kids, elementary kids, the middle school kids, high school kids, how important is ownership of your skill set, ownership of your career to you just individually?
It's the ultimate goal, and that's how I preposition every conversation I have with a hitter. The end goal is for them to be their own best coach. It's not for me to fix them because they're not broken. And I think that's where things go wrong in the first place. It's like, let me tell you what you're doing wrong, Johnny, but have confidence, even though I see 12 things you're doing wrong. Like, you got to tread lightly when it comes to a hitter's psyche. Like, you got to kind of pump them up before you actually change them. And you got to like offer it up. Like, maybe try this out, see if it fits. If it fits, great. If not, put it back on the rack. Like, that's the way I go about it. And you kind of get them to try things. And then when they like it, then they're like, okay. Or you maybe just plant a seed, maybe not make them do it. They kind of let that ruminate. They come back. They maybe do it on their own. I've had players come to me and be like, you know what I was thinking? If I just did this with my swing, I'm like, it's exactly what I had said a week ago, but they think it's coming from their own mind. And I'm like, yes, love that. Let's go do that. Now they think it's their idea. They have ownership, and now they're coaching themselves. They know their bodies better than we do. They know their feels. They know their thoughts, their intentions, their mind, their fears, their doubts. Like, you got to kind of go where they are. You got to meet them where they are, because if you try to drag them to where you are, like, you're just not going to get buy-in. You're not going to have a confident hitter, and it happens all the time, and it's unfortunate.
I'm two words come to my mind, and maybe I was poked by what I read, but two words come to my mind about how you coach, and I think I would really like playing for you, is empathy and service. So empathy and service as it relates to coaching. There are a lot of coaches that might listen to this, and young coaches, maybe coaches our age. But how important what does that mean when I say empathy and service as a coach? What does that mean to you?
That's everything. That's my 3 pillars, or 2 of the 3 is empathy, kindness, and service. And that's the pillars for being a transformational coach versus a transactional coach. And there's a book out there called Inside Out Coaching that my late coach at University of Louisiana Lafayette told me to buy and read when I got into coaching. And I'm thankful he had me do it, because it put into words what I wanted to be as a coach, where I wanted to go.
What book is that, Chase?
Inside Out Coaching.
Inside Out Coaching. Okay.
And I've always had a good feel for how hard baseball was. So I think that allows me to have empathy. I think I've failed as much as anybody. So I can, and I don't forget how hard it was. And I think that helps me to have that empathy. I've been down the road that whatever road you've been down as a hitter, I've been down it and fallen on my face. So I think that gives me empathy. And then kindness is, I don't want to boss you. I don't want to be above you. I want to be next to you, and I want to be your collaborator. I want to be your support system. I want to be your mentor. And then, I want to serve you. I want to get below you. Low man wins. I want to lift you up to where you want to go. I want to lift you to levels you couldn't even see in yourself. I want to see things in you that you can't see in yourself. And for me to do that, I got to serve you from underneath. I got to push you up and get underneath you and make you believe what you can't see.
Dang, firing me up. Coach Chase Lambin of the Texas Rangers, AAA bench coach for the Texas Rangers, join us on the Baseball Forward podcast. For all my time in this game of baseball, the guys that I respect the most are the ones that are talking the way you're talking, and because I know this, players hate feeling judged. They hate feeling like it's hopeless.
They don't want to be everybody. I don't even like the word fix. Fix insinuates that something's broken.
That's right.
The players aren't broken. And a player doesn't care what you know until he knows how much you care. And that came from Bobby Valentine when I played for him in Japan. He told me that, and it stuck with me. And it's true. Like, you have got to show them you care before you give them any mechanical advice, mentality advice, pitch timing, or any of that. Like, that's why my coaching style is not drive-by. I mean, it is I'm going to plant next to you and we're going to grow together. Like, I'm not going to fix you in a day. I'm not even going to use that word, but we're going to move together, and I'm just going to try and, empower you and motivate you and get you to see things a little different, ask questions you wouldn't normally ask. And that's kind of why I wrote the book. I mean, if you read it, there's tons of just questions. There's just tons of questions that you've got to be asking yourself. And if you're not, you're just rolling dice, hoping to get a hit. Like, it's a solution-based sport. Like, there's problems and then there's solutions. And if you're not trying to solve problems amongst internally, then you're literally just you're hoping to get a hit. That's your game plan. That's not enough.
I hear from the best of the best, the coaches that really make impacts. They say, you got to show them that you care. You got to get them to trust you. So my question to you would be how do you show them that you care? How do you gain their trust as a coach?
It's a good question. It's not like any one thing that I try to do. I think the points I made earlier, that I'm not going to impose my swing on you. I'm not going to impose my career on you. I'm not going to tell you how good I was. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to ask more questions than I give explanations. I'm going to get to know you and your family and your girlfriend, and where your background is, where you come from. I'm going to show interest in you as a person before I really try to break down your swing. I'm going to make you laugh. I'm going to be there when you struggle. I'm going to put my arm around you when things aren't going well. It's just the little things that, a player may not remember what you tell him, but he does remember how you made him feel. And I think that's just something that maybe naturally comes out of me, is that I do have so much empathy and I do have so much curiosity about humanity. I really care. I'm really interested in people. So I ask a lot of questions. And when you ask questions, people feel cared about. If you have a player and you've never asked them a single question about themselves, like, what are you doing? Like,
Yep.
you just think you have all the answers. And if you don't ask questions, that means you have all the answers, and nobody wants to hear that guy.
Boy, that's good. That's gold right there. I want to we're talking with Chase Lambin on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Chase Lambin, author of the Hitter's Handbook. I want to get in a little bit to the details of the Hitter's Handbook and the three things before mechanics. So when I say mentality, because let's try to make this, I know we only have 45 minutes or so and we got about 15, 20 minutes left, but I want to know, like, when I say mentality to you as a hitter, you're coaching, whatever age you're coaching, what is mentality to you? What's a good mentality?
It's everything for me. I mean, it's literally the fork in the road that you can't miss. And the way I see it and the way I teach it and the way I explain it, and it's become super sticky for players, is that you're either the predator or you're the prey. And if you don't know which one you are, good luck. All right. So every at bat, there's an invisible battle going on. There's an invisible battle of your conviction versus mine, your preparation versus mine, your confidence versus mine. And if you're not, actively trying to hunt, then you're being hunted. So I see it as you're either the tiger or you're the rabbit. And it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to be a tiger every time, but you do need to be able to self-evaluate and know that when you're being a rabbit. And we've all been there. I'm sure you have. I was there more times than I'd like to admit, where you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to not strike out. You're just trying not to chase the slider in the dirt. You're just trying to not look stupid. You're trying to protect yourself and not be embarrassed. Yep. And that frame of mind will never, ever, 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 ever lead to success. It's the common thread between Ty Cobb and Mike Trout. Those guys were predatorial. It was their plate. It was their at bat. They were going to get out on their terms, or they were going to get a hit on their terms. They couldn't wait for a ball to be thrown over the white of the plate. And when their safety was off, finger was on the trigger, and they were just ready to send it. I mean, being ready to hit, like, that's the mentality it took me a while to kind of learn that, because it's such a scary place. The batter's box is no joke. Like, anybody that wants to talk like flippantly about the batter's box as if like, the parents that are just like, swing and strike or whatever it is, like, no, that's a lonely island. And there's a lot of emotions going on. There's a lot of anxiety and doubts and fears. And that's kind of what I needed to hear someone tell me. And once I heard other like high-level players tell me they had those same thoughts and feelings, I was like, oh, I felt free to just like take that energy and harness it towards the pitcher. Like, how can I take this emotion I have, this aggression and this intensity, and point it towards him with focus, with clarity? Like, then you get into the clarity component of that. But it starts with just being in a predatorial state, like where there's a boxing ring around the pitcher and around you, and you're about to throw down for about 90 seconds. And if you're not down to throw down, it's going to be a hard sport to play. And I'm the nicest guy in the world, but I can flip a switch for a few seconds to where I'm not what you want. But that's what it takes. Like, you got to kind of have a bit of a dark side. So like, if you're after an at bat, if you can look in the mirror and say like, I was ready. I was ready to hit. And he made his pitches, or I was a tick late, like whatever it is. Okay. Like, now you can move on to the next at bat. But if you're perpetually going up there in a passive, riding the brake, I don't know. So that's for me. That's literally the secret to being a great hitter.
Whew. All right. That's mentality, predator or prey. Next, timing. What does timing mean, Coach?
Timing's the most important thing outside of mentality. It's if you're not on time, it doesn't matter what your swing is. If you can't be on time with a fastball, you can't play at a high level. So timing is the feel part of the game, and it's hard to teach, and it's hard to kind of adjust timing. But certain people have feel for it, and there's ways to train it. I mean, if you're not training at high velocities, you're not training mixed speeds. Like, what are you doing? You're just hoping to be on time in the game. Like, you've got to train it. You got to make it hard. You got to create the environment that's difficult so that when the game comes, it's not as difficult. So that's timing.
Do you guys at the AAA levels, how do you practice timing? Like, is it something as simple, like, as I say simple, but putting the jugs machine at flipping the sliders in there, putting a changeup velocity on? How do you train that?
We'll have multiple machines, and we'll have two arms, and we're putting both the balls down. One's a fastball, one's a breaking ball. We'll do light flight balls, throwing, huge shapes and fast shapes and fastballs with huge movements. Like, we can create any shape we want and any velocity we want. And then we can just do something simple as throwing BP with intermittent breaking balls. BP on the field, but I might throw a breaking ball. If I do, just check off. All of a sudden, they can't get on time with a BP fastball because that seed was planted that they might a BP guy throwing 58 might throw a breaking ball, and now we can't even get it out of the turtle. So it shows them like this is how not being committed to a speed or being committed to a fastball affects you at 58. What do you think it's going to be at 98? So now you train to be able to see spin forward, check off, spinning backwards, full send. And if you don't check off, so what? Like you gotta surrender the outcome. You gotta surrender the fact that you're gonna get fooled, you're gonna chase, you're gonna surrender the fact that you might, if you got two soldiers in war and one surrendered the fact that he might die and the other one's just trying to survive, hiding in a hole, which one do you want to fight next to?
That's right. Wow.
Right. That's the guy you want to be. You want to surrender the fact that I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm going to take it to them. I'm going to go full send.
That sounds to me like when you're talking about the timing and training the timing, that goes back to the mentality, man. If you're not
timing is yes, they kind of chain together. So like full commitment, 99% committed isn't enough. That 1% will take over.
Yeah, it will.
So you gotta jump into the deep end. You can't toe the water. Like you gotta go. Like I'm diving into fastball timing, and like I gotta trust. That's the other big word, that I'm going to recognize either ball strike or spin or whatever I'm not looking for, that my body will stop, because the only decision is no.
Yes.
The only decision is no, because I'm fully swinging at this pitch because it's going to be right here at this speed. Bet like it's going to be there, and so then when it's there, you're on it, and if it's not, then you got that power take, and you're like, I got you. Then you're just waiting. I got you. Like I'm squeezing, I'm suffocating you with discipline and clarity, and you're going to make a mistake, and it's going to be game over.
What makes you so passionate about this stuff?
I think just the amount of pain that I've been through in the game. I think the amount of pain that I've felt on the baseball field, where the guts are getting ripped out of your body, the hard times where you can't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that just made me, dig a little deeper and fight a little harder. And I've become, I guess, calloused from the inside out in terms of there's a certain intensity in me that there's a passion for it, because I dug through certain challenges and obstacles mentally. And I feel like if I could get other people to do that with better talent than me, it's like I tell players, like, with your talent and body, in my mind, you got $100 million. Like, let's join forces and do this, man.
And it's, you're firing me up, man. We talked about mentality. We talked about timing. Pitch selection. Go.
Pitch select. You're only as good as the pitch you swing at. And, what's a good pitch? You got to find that out. Where do you handle in the zone? Whatever that is. Like, how can I get a pitch to land there? So then you reverse engineer. Where does this fastball move? How does it move? What are the angles? Where does it need to start to land where I want it to be? Then you start to cut the plate up where you can't cover the whole strike zone. So now you're looking certain zones, go zones, lanes, whatever you want to call them. And you're kind of hunting specific parts of the strike zone. And that way you're swinging at high percentage pitches. And if you're swinging at low percentage pitches, Ted Williams batted 160 on balls down and away in the strike zone. So balls and strikes isn't it either. It's literally like this part of the strike zone. And you paint a picture and you have an idea of what you're looking for, and you train it and you see it in your mind, and then you execute it.
To the young hitters out there that don't, how do you know which pitches you should be swinging at? How do you train what you should be looking for?
I think you can create it with hack attacks. You can see certain speeds and shapes and angles. Like every pitcher has got a different shape. So it just takes a lot of at-bats to build a database of seeing certain things. But when you see something, it's there that you can kind of solve that problem. That's why the unicorn type pitchers with certain release points or, vertical attack angles, like they give guys problems because there's no database the hitters had. So as a young hitter, you don't want to get too granular as a young hitter. You literally just want to kind of look center of the plate and be on time with the fastball. And center can be this, center can be this, center can be this. But like, how tight do you need to focus to allow yourself to swing within this certain heart of the plate? And that's that kind of mental game of like, how selective can I be without being passive, but how aggressive can I be without being passive?
So that makes sense.
It's that game, and there's no like right answer. But if you're not at least thinking about it and asking questions and trying to find out what maybe I thought about it, or whoever else thought about it, then you're just hoping.
Talking to Chase Lambin here on the Baseball Forward podcast. Chase Lambin, AAA bench coach for the Texas Rangers, Round Rock, Texas. I want to know, you look back at everything at this point, and what do you wish you would have known then when you were playing what you know now as a coach?
Gosh, I really don't like to. I don't have many regrets. I feel like everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
Everything, the stumbles had to happen, the falls had to happen to harden me and form me into who I became. So, there's just certain things I wish I'd have known sooner. That's kind of why I got into coaching. Because I feel like around 27 is when things started to kind of come into focus, and I actually wrote out a lot of that book that I released in 2007. I wrote out my
Wow.
approach with the plan and the mentality, and I started to kind of just write out my ideas. And by then I'm past the prospect age. I'm killing it in AA and AAA, but I'm 27. I've kind of missed my window, and was able to play till I was 35 at a high level. But just had I known and had that clarity at 22 instead of 27, what if it's maybe I wasn't mature enough to even be able to think that way, but I'd like to think I did, had the maturity. And if someone would have handed me the hitter's handbook when I was 22, would it have made me the player at 22 that I was at 27? So it's just, I guess, just learning faster. I guess is my regret. But it's such a hard game to learn, and there's so much failure. I don't really have that many regrets though.
I love hearing that, man. With baseball forward, our MO is elevating the next generation. And I can tell, man, the fire you have for the game of baseball, I bet you we probably don't care if we're talking to professional hitters or T-ball players. The passion for you is going to be the same. So what would your advice be to elevate the next generation of ball players?
I think just look at yourself as a product that, do people want to have you on their team? Are you a whole player? Are you a great teammate? Do you bring energy and passion? Do you bring effort and attitude? Do you bring enthusiasm? Do you make your teammates better? Do you do what everybody else isn't willing to do? Do you do the hard things with a smile? Or are you just kind of a distraction where you're pouting because you're not hitting in the lineup where you want? I mean, there's so many opportunities to separate yourself without getting a hit. You can be different and endear yourself to so many decision makers, coaches, whoever, just by being a great teammate and an all-around good player. Run the bases well, play good defense, throw to the right base, don't miss your cutoff, know the fundamentals, know where your teammates are supposed to be, encourage them, coach them. Like, these are there's just inches all around us. There's low-hanging fruit that, like, everyone's looking right past those things, trying to create this magical swing. And I feel like people just get lost in the minutia of the Twitter world of baseball, where, like, no one's getting paid to hit in a cage. No one's getting a scholarship for hitting in a cage. Until that happens, like, you better be a whole baseball player. You better figure out a way to be a valuable asset on a baseball team. Do you help a team win? Because that's all coaches want. They just want you to help them win. And if you're just hitting cage bombs, you're not helping them win.
That is so, and that's something that is in the showcase era that we live in. That is something that is lost, and it kind of sucks from time to time. To I know probably the things that you loved about baseball, and I know that I loved about baseball, being with the boys, selling out for your teammates, and all that. I feel like that some of that is missed. How if I'm a guy coming up right now, how can I focus on being a good? Is it I focus on being a good teammate and then just handle my responsibilities? Is that kind of the message?
I think you serve others. I mean, you try to, like, it's kind of the way I coach, like, ask other people questions, see how you can help someone else. And all of a sudden it takes the focus off of you. And now you're a little more free to be yourself and just play. Like, it's amazing. I've given that piece of advice to dozens of young players who are going through it. I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about, taking an extra 200 swings today. Just go love on some teammates. Go see how you feel about yourself at, come game time, when you just spend a couple hours going around checking on cats, and just see the response you get, see the reputation you start to build, and see the legacy you start to leave when you're that type of person and player. And then all of a sudden the hits aren't as important. Now you're looking for little opportunities to make other people better, and that's going to give you the same juice as that double.
I'll tell you what, that is it takes the spotlight off you, and no one wants the stinking spotlight on them when times are going bad. Everybody can kind of handle it. Well, most people can handle it when times are good, but I know this about baseball. I don't want to be too high and I don't want to be too low. I want to be a good teammate. I want to mind my own business, and I want to help wherever I can. And I feel like that's the easiest way to kind of not get the attention on me. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think there's two things you can control on a daily basis, and that's effort and attitude. If you bring great effort and you bring great attitude, like, you can't fail, and you can't have a bad day when you're bringing those two things. You may not get hits, but you did something to help the team. I promise you.
That's right. That's right. Talking with Chase Lambin on the Baseball Forward podcast. Chase, let me give one or two more questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here. I know you got the off season. You're probably kicking back. You probably just woke up. No, you're a motivated. you're a motivated guy. Advice to parents listening to this, young ball players, high school ball players, whatever it is. Your advice as a high level baseball guy. Your advice to parents that are listening to this.
Oh man, let them play. Let them find themselves. Just encourage them. Tell them you love to watch them play. Be there when they want to practice. Provide the resources when they want it. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And there's a lot of kids that are just getting, I feel like, not pushed too hard, but I see it in my own son's games where I just see parents living vicariously through their children, and it's kind of gross. Like I realized that the other day there was some coaches yelling in the dugout, and I said, why do you think we don't yell in the dugout in Round Rock? I don't know. Do you think because we don't care, we don't want to coach? It's because it's not the best practice. Like,
that's right.
You think a 12-year-old is going to be able to take a yelling at them, but like, it's not good for a 22-year-old. If it's not good for a 22-year-old, it's probably not good for a 12-year-old. So yelling doesn't do anybody any good. Just be empathetic, be kind, serve them. Like, it's a journey into a beautiful sport that you can strip away the beauty of it if you hold on to it too tight. Like, just see it for what it is. It's just a game. Now, it's something you can put your heart and soul into, and don't get me wrong, it's not, kumbaya. Like, there's a time to get after it. But I think, parents out there, just love them up and love them through it.
Advice to, well, you kind of just gave it, but I want to hear it anyway. Advice to coaches out there coaching kids, whether it's that, dad's helping a team, whether it's, high school coaches, what's your advice to coaches out there?
The team or players production isn't a reflection on you. Like, hopefully you see it as you're building young men and not just building baseball players. So if you see it that way, then you'll treat them differently. And if you want to just help them be a better person and a better player, I feel like the delivery will be better. The coaching will be better. The content will be more understandable. I think it's just sometimes we get a little too worked up over someone else's production. Like, you can't claim their success and you can't claim their failure. So just be in the middle and just be someone that's going to be a solid person, to help them out any way you can.
Wow. No hidden agenda. That's what it sounds like to me. Just be a good person and try to be a good person to them. I want to give you, Coach Chase Lambin, I want to give you a second. I want to say this, the Hitter's Handbook. I love it, man. I can't wait to read. And I want to give it to my boys so that they can just see, hey, let's start reading. Let's start thinking about some of this stuff. Plug the Hitter's Handbook. Where can we get the Hitter's Handbook? Where can our audience go grab a copy?
Hittershandbook.com will take you to the actual button to push to buy it. It's an ebook right now. We're in the process of printing out hard copies, but it just was released for Cyber Monday. So it's ebook versions on hittershandbook.com. You go to Facebook, Hitter's Handbook, go to Instagram, Twitter, all the same handle. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Chase Lambin. I'm the only Chase Lambin in America, so I should be easy to find. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But like those sites and spread the word as much as you can, because a lot of people are just looking for answers, and there's a lot of answers in that book.
I'll tell you what, go get a copy. Do your son a favor. Do yourself a favor, because I think, hey, it's fun just to read, and maybe you go out as your dad and go out in the garage to take a couple hacks off the tee. Maybe it'll make you better. Who knows? Chase Lambin.
One more point. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I purposely made it short because I didn't want it to be, I call it a handbook because it's not really a book. I play with a lot of baseball players. You hand them a book, they're going to hand it right back. So it's less than 30 pages, which in my mind, if you can't read 29 pages, like, I can't help you. I'm trying to meet you in the middle. It's super, there's no fluff. It's just straight, good content to help your young hitters. So, it's easily read from 12-year-olds all the way up to, I've sent it to, major leaguers in the big leagues right now that find it very, very helpful. So it spans multiple ages.
Hey, I got it right here, and I printed it out. 29 pages. And if I can read it, I'm telling you, anybody can read it. Chase Lambin, you're the man. I mean, what an enjoyable conversation. We want to have you back, and you guys go give him a follow. And he's one of the good guys in the game, and he's doing it the right way. I want to say thanks again to Chase Lambin for joining us on the show, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Baseball Forward podcast. I'm your host, Ross Hawley, and I will see you next time. Take care, Chase.
All right, see you.
All right.